Good evening, Rabbi. Today marks the death anniversary, YORTZEIT, of the Rabbanit, the wife of our great teacher and Rabbi, Rabbi OVADIA, alav shalom, the great, eminent Torah authority of our generation. How did he have the zehut? How did he have the merit to become such a great scholar in Torah? It's because, as they say, behind every great man, there's a great woman. You don't know how true that is, actually. You can see now from this example, she was a true Eshet Chayal, a valorous woman, who did everything, who took care of all the needs of the house. So the rabbi didn't need, alav shalom, to do anything to take care of the household needs. Whether it was the cleaning, the cooking, whether it was preparations, whatever it is, everything was done by the Rabbanit, by the Rebbitzin. And this way, the rabbi had time to write his great books, his great works in Halacha, 54 books that he wrote, but each one of them is a classic. Each one is like worth maybe 10 books from somebody else, because there's so much wisdom in there, there's so many sources, there's so much tradition, there's so much Torah to learn from these books, that as the great, one of the great rabbis of our generation, Rabbi Weiss, who was the Av Bet Din and the Posek of the Eda Charedit, he said that if they would take away all my books, I would let them take everything except the Yomer, the ones that were written by the Rabbi Shalom, Rabbeinu. He said those books I wouldn't give up. You know why? Because the whole Torah is in there. So you don't need any more testimony than that. In the books of the Rabbi Shalom, the whole Torah was there. If you knew his books, you knew the whole Torah. So a person who didn't learn the books of MARAN, he doesn't really know today what's going on in Halacha. He doesn't know so well these things, because he very much explained and very much updated the issues in Halacha. How did he have the time to do all this? Because of his great Rebbitzin, the Rabbanit, which he sat and she took care of all the needs of the rabbi. The chief rabbi, the current chief rabbi, Rabbi YOSEF, who was the son of the rabbi, alav shalom, he recounted to us how it worked in the house. He said that the Rabbanit wouldn't let the rabbi do anything, whether it was turning on the gas even, or something like that, or making a pot of coffee, or making some tea. Everything was done for him, and even going out to the store, to buy some groceries or anything like that, the rabbi was not involved in that. Everything was done for him. She made sure that everything was prepared and done, even things which are personal items for his own body, like buying a pair of shoes or buying a new suit. Even this, the Rabbanit arranged it for him. She would go out and go to the tailor or go to the shoemaker, and she would let them to make the shoes for the rabbi and to come over and to measure it for him, so he didn't have to go to the store, he didn't have to go out to the market, he didn't have anything to do. It was so extreme the way the rabbi lived. The rabbi tells over his son, the chief rabbi, that what happened was that one day the Rabbanit, alaiha shalom, she went to give birth to the hospital, and they were young kids, and they had to go to Talmud Torah, they had to go to the yeshiva, and they didn't have anybody to give them the bread, the provisions to go in the lunchbox to go to the school. So what happened was that they asked the rabbi in the morning. They said, "Who's going to give us?" So the rabbi says, don't worry, I'll go out and I'll get you the bread, I'll get you all the provisions." So he goes out, comes back later, a half hour later, comes back home with nothing in his hands, no groceries, no nothing. So they asked him, they said, "Rabbi, what happened? You were out for a half hour. Why didn't you bring anything back?" So they said, I don't even know where the supermarket is. I can't even find it. He was so out and removed from this world, he didn't even know where the supermarket was. Another example is, he didn't know how money looks, how the bills of Israel, the money over there, he didn't even know how it looks. He never used money. So what happened was that one day, it's a funny story, one relative of his grandson or son-in-law comes over, and what happens is that the rabbi hears that this young man doesn't have money to make the holiday. He doesn't have enough money. He's a Talmid Chacham, he's a yeshiva student. So what happened was the rabbi pulls out some money and gives it to him. He says, "Here, go buy what you need for the holiday." So the young avrech, the young student, looks at the money. He says, "Rabbi, this is monopoly money. What are you giving me this for? This is not real money. This is toy money." So the rabbi told him, he says, "Oh, I'm sorry." He says, "I don't know. I didn't know. I thought this was real money." The rabbi was so removed from this world, he didn't even know what money looks like. There's also another story that they told over to us from a different source. We had from a different person who was working at the yeshiva. He told us that one time the rabbi took a helicopter. This was his custom, to take helicopters to fly over to all the cities in Israel and to give lectures over there to spread Torah. So what happened was that one time they were coming back with a helicopter from a certain place, and they got into a storm over there. There was a storm, so the helicopter couldn't land. So they told the rabbi, they said, Rabbi, it's going to be delayed for a while. We can't land right now. So call your house and call your home and tell them you're going to be late, so they shouldn't worry about you. So the rabbi says, oh, okay. So then, right, what do they realize? He doesn't even know his phone number. The rabbi didn't know the phone number to dial to get to his house. They had to find it for him. Somebody had to go and look for the phone number. So the rabbi was totally removed from this world, and this is the reason why he was able to achieve the greatness in Torah, that he was the leading Torah scholar of our generation, the eminent Torah scholar. Nobody compared to him. Why is that? Because all in the zchut of his great Rabbanit, of the Rebbetzin, she was able to accommodate him in all the needs that he needed, and beyond even that, in order that he should be able to sit and learn Torah all day. The same thing I was told over by one rabbi who lived in Jerusalem, one friend of mine. He told me that one day, this was like 50 years ago, that they decided to go to Switzerland to raise money for yeshivot, for the Israeli yeshivot. Probably this was the girls' seminaries we're talking about. So what happened was that they took the rabbi with them. They asked the rabbi to come, MARAN. He said, come with us and raise money for us together. You have a good name. You're a famous rabbi, you're a chief rabbi. So they'll donate for you money. So the rabbi said, okay, fine, no problem. So he flew over to Switzerland with them, and they went on the same flight. So what happened was that this rabbi told me over that the Rabbanit was also there with the rabbi. They flew together. So what happened was that she was taking care of all his needs, even on the plane. Whatever he needed, she wasn't sitting there, and reading magazines or, listening to some music or whatever it is, some headphones. No, she was there, watching out for him, making sure that he's got all he needs, because he needs to study also on the plane. He studied everywhere he went. Wherever it was that he went, he studied over there. He never stopped learning Torah. So this is the way it was over time. So we see, right, the devotion of this great woman is what built this great Torah dynasty of the rabbi's students. His sons became Talmidei Chachamim, and also the many great students and disciples that the rabbi had. They say most of the disciples of the rabbi in our times, most of the rabbinic positions in Israel are taken by the disciples of the rabbi, because the rabbi had so many disciples. He taught so many people Torah. He spread Torah so greatly, and therefore he had the zechut to have 1 million people at his funeral. No, there was no funeral like this in modern history that we see, that there was 1 million people there. Why did 1 million people come to his funeral? What's the reason why? Because they felt gratitude, because they received from him Torah. He spread so much Torah throughout Israel, throughout the Jewish people, all over Israel and all over the whole world. And this all came from one Rabbanit, one Rebbetzin, who sat in her house and make sure that everything was taken care of, so that the rabbi should be able to disseminate the Torah. So Rabbatai, we have to learn a lesson from here, that devotion to Torah requires this kind of lifestyle. That a woman who wants to have a Talmid Chacham as her husband, who wants to be in the world of Torah, who wants to be in the yeshiva world, in the kollel world, she wants her husband to be a big Chacham. So what does she have to do? She has to devote herself to the needs of her husband. So therefore the husband can sit and learn Torah all day. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen ve'amen. We should be blessed, and we should see the Geula Shlema b'mehera b'yameinu. Amen ve'amen. Chazak u'baruch.